This is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
Over 50 people killed in a tanker explosion in Haiti. Chinese President Xi Jinping sends condolences to U.S. President Joe Biden over the deaths caused by tornadoes. And the UK removes 11 African countries from its red list, says Omicron travel bans no longer serve a purpose. This is Africa Live. Thank you for joining us. I am Peninah Karibe. With me in studio with the business headlines is Uche.
Thank you, Peninah. And here's a look at what's coming up on Africa Live Biz. Competition from foreign businessmen driving local cashew nut processors in Cote d'Ivoire out of business. And South Sudan suspended from the Intergovernmental Authority on Development over their failure to pay annual fees. Of course, all that coming up within the program. For now, back to you, Peninah.
Thank you, Uche. At least 50 people have been killed and dozens more injured in Haiti after a truck carrying fuel exploded in the northern city of Cap-Haïtien. The explosion occurred as the nation struggles with fuel shortages and spiraling gas prices. Authorities say the accident took place after the driver of the truck lost control while trying to avoid a motorcycle taxi. After the vehicle overturned, pedestrians rushed to collect fuel. The nearby Justinian University Hospital said it was overwhelmed by the victims, with medics stating they may not be able to save all those who had been affected by the explosion. The disaster is also said to have burnt down 20 homes close to the site. Deputy Mayor Patrick Almano says the death toll is likely to rise. 3 days of national mourning have been declared following the tragedy. Let's speak to Yvonne Villiers, who's currently in Haiti. Yvonne, how much do we know so far about the cause of this tragedy and what's going on at the scene right now?
Normally, this happened this morning around midnight. So around 50 people got killed during this. Okay, so all the government, including the Prime Minister, traveled this morning to see how they can give support to this population. That happened, I can say, after the government increased the gas, increased the fuel, and then people are really in bad situation right now because the hospitals, and the patients cannot provide some help, some help to some patients. So, as mentioned, the government declared 3 days of mourning, 2 days of money, so that they can try to bring more support to the population. And then the government said they will try to organize a national funeral for all those people who passed away during this tragedy.
All right, Yvonne, thank you very much for that update. We appreciate Yvonne Villiers giving us an update on that tragedy that happened in Cap-Haïtien, Haiti. Chinese President Xi Jinping has sent condolences to his U.S. counterpart Joe Biden over the deadly hurricanes that hit 6 states on Friday. He also extended sympathies to those affected by the freak storms. At least 88 people are confirmed to have died, but dozens remain missing. Kentucky was the worst hit state. It has announced 74 deaths, but its governor says that number is likely to rise. Thousands of people have had their homes destroyed. President Biden is expected to visit Kentucky on Wednesday to survey the damage. Our reporter Dan Williams is in Kentucky right now and joins us for the very latest. Dan, we know President Biden is expected to arrive there to see the damage firsthand. What's the latest from there?
Yeah, certainly, as you said, those death toll numbers, let's talk about that first of all. Of course, as you say, 74 people known to have died in Kentucky alone, plus another 14 in 4 other states. But that figure of more than 100 people missing, that is, of course, a key concern. And the search and rescue teams, well, they are continuing their work. Of course, there hasn't been a survivor found since Saturday morning, and so that is, of course, a real concern. And the Kentucky governor, Andy Beshear, saying that it would be a miracle if they do indeed find a survivor. But of course, with so many unaccounted for, then we are seeing police dogs going building to building, either trying to find survivors or indeed human remains as well. At the same time, of course, there's multiple things happening here all the time as well, and that includes a huge amount of effort that's going into the cleanup operation. You'll probably see behind me all sorts of different machinery being used to demolish many of the buildings that are left, because although they're vaguely still standing, they are also unfit to continue, and so therefore we've been watching a number of buildings being fully knocked down, back down to the ground. Of course, a key concern is that when this, with maybe a further storm coming at the end of the week, and that will potentially whip up a lot of this debris. So while the weather is as it is, a big focus on the rescue teams is to try and get as much of this debris wrapped up and taken away as quickly as possible. But of course, this is a town, and many other towns, of course, across the pathway of this series of tornadoes that have been utterly devastated. And clearly the process of cleaning up, well, that is underway, as I say, but the building back process, well, that could take many, many years.
Dan, we appreciate that update. Thank you very much. Dan Williams, live for us in Kentucky. The UK has removed all 11 African countries from its red list, effective from early Wednesday morning. The African nations include Angola, Botswana, Eswatini, Lesotho, Malawi, Mozambique, Namibia, Nigeria, South Africa, Zambia and Zimbabwe. The list was introduced in late November after the emergence of the Omicron variant. However, health authorities say it is no longer necessary as the new strain has spread widely across the world. Temporary testing measures for international travel will be maintained. Currently, citizens from red list countries must pay for and self-isolate in a pre-booked government-approved hotel for 10 days. The UK's travel bans led to an outcry from the affected countries. Meanwhile, the World Health Organization says Africa has experienced an 83% surge in new COVID-19 cases during the past week. This increase is attributed to both the Delta variant and the new Omicron variant. The WHO Africa Regional Office revealed today that while the speed of the spread is fast, coronavirus deaths remain low, dropping by 19% last week compared with the previous week. There were a little over 3,000 deaths reported during the first 3 weeks of the current pandemic wave, which is Africa's fourth. However, the agency is warning that the continent could witness more waves in future. It also predicts that vaccine uptake in Africa may not reach the global target of 70% until August 2024.
We're at a pivotal moment, and complacency is our enemy. Africa is seeing more consistent delivery of vaccine doses, and we can still save many lives if we urgently accelerate the pace of vaccination. In real terms, if African countries get the doses and support necessary to vaccinate 70% of their populations, as is the case for many wealthy countries, we could avert tens of thousands of deaths from COVID-19.
The main airport in Ghana will slap airlines with a $3,500 fine for any unvaccinated passenger they bring into the country. The rule also applies to those who test positive for coronavirus upon arrival. The measures have been imposed at Kotoka International Airport in the capital Accra. Authorities say that in the last 2 weeks, 60% of all cases in Ghana have been recorded at the airport. Officials in the country launched a major vaccination drive this month to be enforced in January. The vaccine mandate is targeting government employees, health workers and students. Ghana's tightening of COVID measures comes as the European Investment Bank announced an $85 million investment loan to support its pandemic response. Meanwhile, many governments in Africa are now beginning to make COVID-19 vaccinations mandatory in various ways. Here are some of the countries that have imposed vaccine mandates. In West Africa, Mauritania and Nigeria have made vaccination compulsory for state employees. Ghana's main airport, as we've reported, has announced it will fine airlines up to $3,500 for each unvaccinated passenger they fly in. Ghana's vaccine mandate will also apply to all public sector and health workers from January. In North Africa, Egypt required government employees to be vaccinated before mid-November. University students in public institutions were also advised to take the jab in order to access campuses. Meanwhile, Morocco and Tunisia introduced vaccine passes in October for entry into public and private administrations, as well as public spaces such as restaurants and transport systems. Over in East Africa, Djibouti issued a presidential decree in June, making the jab compulsory for all those over 25 years of age. This includes foreigners residing in the country. While in Kenya, a mandate citing that all residents must show proof of immunization by December 21st was temporarily suspended by a high court on Tuesday to allow for a court challenge to be heard. Finally, in Southern Africa, Zimbabwe ordered all state workers to get vaccinated in July or risk getting barred from their workplaces. Private companies have imitated the move. South Africa says that it is still consulting on whether to implement its own mandates. Tunisian President Kais Saied has said a constitutional referendum will be held next July, with parliamentary elections to follow at the end of 2022. The president laid out the timeline for his proposed political changes in a televised speech. He says the referendum would take place following an online public consultation that will start in January. The referendum date is Tunisia's Republic Day and the anniversary of his sudden intervention. This announcement of a roadmap out of the crisis has been awaited since President Saied suspended parliament, dismissed the prime minister and assumed executive authority.
Parliament will remain suspended until the date of organizing new elections. The draft of the constitutional reforms and others will be presented to a referendum on July 25th, the date of the celebration of the anniversary of the Republic Day. Legislative elections will be organized, God willing, according to the new electoral law on December 17, 2022.
Now, earlier we spoke to Dr. Norhan El-Sheikh, a professor of political science at Cairo University, about what this roadmap means for Tunisia and what to expect in the referendum debates. Take a listen.
What President Saied declared, which we considered as a roadmap that may calm the pressures, Western pressures and Western demands. Last G7 demanded clearly to clarify what would be next in Tunisia. So it may calm that pressures from outside. It may also help to calm some pressures from inside. Particularly those supported Kais Saied, but want to know also what would be next. So it was very important, that roadmap, but it will not calm all demands or all pressures, because one of the main element of that demonstrations, etc., is brotherhood leading pressures. So those leaded or Muslim brotherhood behind wouldn't be and came to an end because the ideological factors will still continue. But I think it's a step forward. The most important issue that may attract the attention and debate along Tunisia is how much freedom would be guaranteed to individuals, to associations, to NGOs, because in Tunisia, NGOs enjoyed usually a space, a very important space and freedom. And I think if President Kais Saied guaranteed that in the new constitution, that would attract more support to him. And he is really wanted to do that, because other fractions in Tunisia, rather than brotherhood, the most important issue for them is to enjoy democracy, is to enjoy freedom of speech and freedom of NGOs in general, and civil society to have its own freedoms and activities. So I think that would attract much more discussion, and if it would be granted, that would help a lot in stability in Tunis.
You're watching Africa Live. Let's take a quick break. Coming up. Radio drama helping Uganda to reach communities with anti-pandemic messages.
So this is it. I'm just about to be shot.
Tents here, bottles are being thrown as they do so.
There are about 3 critical bridges here in Malawi. That's one of them. We're going to cross that bridge.
As you can see behind me, police forces
who are replying with gas. Gas just came in.
Tear gas, so it's all begun now.
Divisions leading the charge into West Mosul have brought us here.
Just got to be careful here with some gunshots.
This is where most of the fighting has been concentrated.
This is the front line now after 9 days of fighting.
We're about 2 to 3 kilometers from
Within
the front
clear
line.
view of this front line position.
Libya's Election Commission has delayed the announcement of the final list of presidential candidates until some court cases are resolved. Appeals against some presidential candidates and the election law have been filed in Libyan courts. This means the list of candidates for the 24th December election cannot be prepared until final verdicts are reached in those court cases. CGTN's Adel Mahroui has more details.
The fate of Libya's 24th December presidential election is now unclear. The Libyan Election Commission has failed to meet the deadline to announce its final list of candidates. It has also not given a specific time frame to finish that task. According to the initial plan, candidates should have had only 1 week to campaign. Now it's become almost impossible to hold the vote on time.
Unfortunately, the appeals against the presidential elections are many. These appeals have involved the judicial authority in this political race. Although it's a natural legal road, it has obstructed the vote. For this legal cycle to finish looking into these appeals, a lot of time is needed. The only beneficiaries of that are those who want to remain in power forcefully.
Appeals against the presidential vote began as soon as the Eastern-based parliament issued the election law. When the door opened for applications to vie in the polls, many factions began appealing against their rivals' candidature. So far, the Elections Commission has disqualified at least 25 politicians, including Saif al-Islam Gaddafi, the son of Libya's former president Muammar Gaddafi.
I believe the laws regulating the vote are clear. However, people who are benefiting from them are not acting according to the law, and that's why this is causing confusion. For instance, the interim prime minister came to power through the UN based on certain rules, amongst them not to run for any leading positions. Yet he did. The elections committee dismissed his candidature, but he appealed against it.
Technically, Libya's Election Commission must wait until all of the country's 10 jurisdictions' courts reach a final verdict in the election-related appeals. Only then can it announce a final list of candidates. Meanwhile, 2.4 million voting cards have been distributed to eligible voters.
After making the big announcement, the final nominees in Libya's first presidential election should be given some time to campaign. That could further boost an earlier initiative by the Western-based High Council for State. It wanted to hold the elections in February. Adel Mahroui, CGTN, Cairo.
The Egyptian government has announced measures to stop child labor in the country and ensure all children get access to education. Under the new measures, any facility that uses children as workers could be shut down for up to 6 months. The Egyptian government also plans to fine parents whose children miss school for more than a week without a good reason. Here's CGTN's Adel Mahroui with more details.
In a move to ensure that children grow safely in the country, the Egyptian government is introducing harsher penalties against child labor. Any person below the age of 18 is considered a child in the North African nation. The new set of regulations introduces financial penalties against parents who make or allow their children to skip school for at least 1 week without justification.
Child labor destroys the future of children. It creates a generation without basic education. Criminalizing labor will protect our society. Any person who learns a craft or has a university degree creates a strong foundation.
Engaging children below 14 years or those who haven't completed their middle school education and work is now considered a crime. Employers could see their business shut down for up to 6 months in case a child labor-related violation is repeated.
Before these latest amendments, penalties were negligible. Now, they are not only more, but the penalties get harsher in case a violation against children is repeated. One of the most important aspects of the law is organizing labor rights for minors. They can't work for more than 6 hours daily. They must take weekends and national holidays off. All employers must report their age and the kind of work they perform.
Until they reach 18 years of age, those who finished basic education can work, but only under certain conditions. They must get 28 days of paid leave annually and at least 1 food break daily. Employers can't use them in night shifts.
This new set of regulations and penalties are definitely not enough. They must be accompanied by awareness. This could take place in schools so that children would know their rights. NGOs could talk to parents to give them insight about what matters the most for their children's future.
Experts are concerned about how law enforcement will apply the new law. They say that strict applications of penalties against child labor is a good start until awareness campaigns about the harms of child labor get the proper exposure they need. Adel Mahroui, CGTN, Cairo.
Like many African countries, Uganda has struggled to deal with the COVID-19 pandemic. However, radio dramas are helping drive the COVID-19 message to millions of people through funny and dramatic skits, as Leon Senyange reports.
A recording is underway. This group is part of the cast of a radio drama, Banada Twegande. The radio drama that plays weekly on a local radio station aims to help people understand the issues surrounding COVID-19.
I play Mzee Katumbwe, who suffered from COVID. He was held at the hospital because of the heavy bill, and his village had to contribute to it. That is what has happened.
This is Sandra Namugerwa, her stage name Nachi. She takes the character of a young female struggling with the reality of having a COVID-19 patient in her house. Her story resonates with many Ugandans over the past 2 years.
The stigmatization is really at a high. Okay, right now it is not because people are used. But in the other days, when COVID had just come, people were really scared.
According to health experts, Uganda has been impacted by misinformation circulating about COVID-19 and the vaccines fighting the virus. And it's taken some effort to change perceptions. It's dramas like these that are now an effective way of creating more awareness about the potential threat of COVID-19. According to the producers of the show, the skits are giving listeners the opportunity to make more informed choices.
People didn't know how to deal with it. People didn't know how it can affect them. So we portray, first of all, how the disease affects their health. Then we portray how it affects them socially and economically. And if they don't adhere to what the health workers are saying, the consequences.
Uganda has so far recorded over 128,000 COVID-19 cases. The national vaccination drives have seen over 7.8 million doses administered. Using the radio skits, there is hope that the many holding back can have a change in attitude.
People don't want to read volumes and volumes of books. They want information simplified, that in 15 minutes you can summarize a full story about a COVID patient or whatever, and people will have learned. So drama is going to stay. And most of our people, especially in this part of Africa, where we still have a peasant society, probably they don't have TV, they can't read, they can't. The easiest way to reach them is through radio drama.
The World Health Organization warns that the number of COVID-19 cases could rapidly rise with the emergence of the new variant Omicron. And that will be one of the talking points in the coming skids. Leon Sanyange, CGTN, Kampala, Uganda.
Within 40 years, China has lifted about 800 million people out of absolute poverty. A crucial effort in achieving this goal was improving the quality of education for those living in impoverished rural areas. CGTN reporter Meng Qingsheng takes us to southwest China's Sichuan province to a middle school in the Liangshan Yi Autonomous Prefecture, which used to be one of the poorest regions in the country.
At Xide Middle School, these students are in English class. It's one of the 3 compulsory subjects tested on college entrance examinations. For Wenggu Shamo, the test is an opportunity to embrace a bigger world.
I'm in junior high school. My dream is to get into a senior high school and then into a college. My sister is a college student. She told me that the campus life is so colorful that I can do many things to improve myself.
Most of the 50 students in this class are Yi ethnic people, and many of them are from poverty-ridden families. Lei Yusheng came here 2 years ago on a national program to help improve quality of teaching in rural areas.
I think education plays a fundamental role in fighting the intergenerational transmission of poverty. So we encourage students to work hard and achieve better performances. What we are doing here is bringing positive changes to a student, a family, an ethnic group, and even an entire nation.
With special funding from the government, the school is able to provide free meals for students from poor families. Some of them are exempt from paying tuition fees and receive regular financial assistance. Le Ge Watie says he prioritizes a financial solution to help those students. But for the long run, he's determined to improve the quality of teaching and provide his students with better resources.
We've piloted a program of sending some of our students to middle schools in more developed regions where they have better chances of going to colleges. It allows them to realize an education gap and encourages them to work even harder. When they return, they could contribute more to local communities.
When class finished, we followed Wu Shamo to her home in a village about 5 kilometers away. The family has 2 girls and 1 boy, all attending schools. The mother told us their family income of around $2,800 a year barely covers all the expenses.
I've never attended schools in my life, but I wish that all my children receive high-quality education. I really hope that I could read Chinese characters, speak the language well, and expose myself to more new things.
Wu Shamo dreams of going to college and living a better life. Despite uncertainties, she's determined to make that dream come true. Meng Qingsheng, CGTN, Xide, Sichuan Province.
Well, time now to catch up with the day's business news. For the latest, let's cross over to Uche.
Thanks, Peninah. And coming up on Africa Live Biz. Competition from foreign businessmen driving local cashew nut processors in Côte d'Ivoire out of business. And South Sudan suspended from the Intergovernmental Authority on Development over their failure to pay annual fees.
How will your world change today? What happens here? What happens there? Or what you make happen for yourself? If it matters to you, it matters to us too. Your stories are the stories that need to be told. Africa Live. Find your voice.
Africa is the nexus of enterprise, and global business will tell you why it matters.
From the mega investment projects to multi-billion-dollar mergers and acquisitions.
Africa today collects, just in terms of revenues from taxes alone, $545 billion a year. If you take 10% of that and you devote it to the energy sector, problem solved.
All this on Global Business, weekdays at this time on CGTN. Well, let's start off in Côte d'Ivoire, where cashew processors are being driven towards bankruptcy by Asian exporters who have been buying up all the local supply. Now, Reuters reports that 5 processing companies have gone bankrupt and closed their factories in the last 2 years, while 4 others are in difficulty and have considerably reduced their activities. Now, this is against the government plan to invigorate the sector. Cashew processors in the country have previously said they needed more government support and protection from competition coming from deeper-pocketed foreign buyers who pay higher prices to control the supply of raw cashew nuts. And moving to Kenya now, data from the credit reference bureaus have revealed that close to 99% of the 4.6 million loan accounts which were negatively listed with them will now have their data frozen. This follows the suspension of reporting of defaults on about 5 million shillings. That's just about $50,000 and below. Now, Kenyan President Uhuru Kenyatta put a moratorium on negative listing of borrowers for a year in September. Though the suspension is part of the measures to cushion borrowers hit by the COVID-19 pandemic. The Central Bank of Kenya has also warned that commercial banks could restart rationing loans following the suspension of blacklisting of such defaulters. Meanwhile, the Intergovernmental Authority on Development has suspended South Sudan from the regional bloc due to failure to pay annual fees which were owed to the regional body. Now, South Sudan's government, however, says it is making preparations to pay those dues to the Trading and Security Regional Body. Here's CGTN's Patrick Oyet with the details.
The suspension is because South Sudan has not paid its membership fees amounting to $9 million. The residents of South Sudan's capital, Juba, are reacting to the suspension.
We also, as South Sudan, have a lot of things in common with these neighboring countries. We do trade together with them, look at the security of South Sudan and the security in the region. We need to work together with them so that all these are in place. But then if we are out of this will really affect us badly.
Suspending South Sudan now will affect the ongoing peace implementation because peace cannot go on when no pressure comes from the regional bloc like IGAD. But I think the government of South Sudan should think of resolving the issue by paying the money that the regional bloc needs.
IGAD, an East African trading and security bloc of 8 nations, was founded in 1986. The 8 IGAD member states are Ethiopia, Eritrea, Djibouti, Kenya, Somalia, Sudan, Uganda, and South Sudan. South Sudan is oil dependent and it is struggling to revive its economy battered by years of conflict since December 2013.
It was decided that the Minister of Foreign Affairs discuss all this with the new Minister of Finance so that they can chart out the way forward in order to pay all the outstanding arrears.
In July last year, the East African Community EAC threatened to suspend South Sudan over failure to pay annual contributions to the body. IGAD mediated a South Sudan's peace process which ended a 6-year civil war in the country. It is also monitoring the implementation of that peace deal signed in 2018. Patrick Oyet, CGTN, Juba, South Sudan.
Now, Uganda's rising population, especially in urban areas, is worrying developers, with urban planners warning that more employment structures are urgently needed. Uganda's urban population is estimated to increase by 5% every year. Here's Peninah Karibe reporting.
Peter Sali runs a chapati stall in Kampala.
His family in rural Uganda was unable to support him. He came to Uganda in 2018 to find work after dropping out of school because he was unable to pay the fees. But life in Kampala has been a roller coaster ride for Sally.
A friend of mine brought me to Kampala, but I had no qualifications that could earn me a job. So I learned how to make chapati, and that's how I survive.
Sally earns $1.4 a day, hardly enough to keep him going. His stall is also situated on a road, and he risks being kicked out by city officials, the Kampala Capital City Authority.
The COVID-19 situation just worsened things. Sometimes we don't even work. KCCA sometimes confiscates our equipment, but we persist.
Thousands of young people like Sally trek to the city every year with the hope of finding a better life, but it often turns out to be a frustrating journey. Many rural-urban trekkers are employed in odd jobs that do not earn them a decent living. Urban planners urge governments need to restructure development by building employment centers that can take in all social classes. Authorities say it's a huge task controlling the growing number of informal workers on the streets.
We can have stalls set up for them. It can be from, let's say, 9 to 2 p.m. every Saturday, a designated place. They would make more decent sales than being daily on the streets. And then it would make sense that government is investing in walkways and pedestrians are utilizing them. Government is investing in markets and people, vendors, are utilizing them. Otherwise, it's not making sense.
The rapid population growth in Kampala has forced authorities to open up new cities with the hope of redistributing social services regionally. But developing new cities may take a long time. Uganda now has 10 cities from just 1 2 years ago.
If we are approving development plans, we need to see the distribution of services. How apart are homes from markets, are homes from shopping areas? Why do we allow one business to be redistributed within the same city more than 10 times, yet in the neighboring region, there is none?
Latest statistics from the World Bank show about 25% of Uganda's population lives in urban areas, and it's expected that by 2050, half of Uganda's population will be living in urban cities. Isabel Nakiria, CGTN Kampala, Uganda.
Well, that's all for now on Africa Live Biz, but coming up later on Global Business Africa, a parliamentary commission in the Democratic Republic of Congo recommends that the government scrap an unpopular drone tax. Of course, all that coming up top of the hour. For now, we're heading into a short break, but do stay with us. My colleague Peninah Karibe will be back with more news after this.
Join us in Global Business and see Africa through our eyes. The greatest journeys, the greatest sights, the greatest adventures.
Here in Panata, this weir allows the locals to walk on water.
We're far more than just TV news. We're your passport to the wonders of Africa.
To bring you stories of struggle, survival and hope.
So let's explore. CGTN. See the difference.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
The 26th Chinese medical mission will begin its duties in Tunisian hospitals from this week. It will succeed the previous team that has provided medical care for a year in several regional hospitals. Adned Shawashi has the details.
The Tunisian Minister of Health, Ali Mrabet, chaired the farewell ceremony in honor of the 25th Chinese medical mission in Tunisia.
China stood by Tunisia and the Tunisian people in the fight against the COVID-19 pandemic. The Chinese 25th Medical Mission and its team have worked throughout Tunisia to help their local population. This is a fruitful and successful health cooperation.
The Chinese ambassador to Tunisia noted that the Chinese medical staff played an important role in the fight against the pandemic. Beijing and Tunis now aim to strengthen this successful health cooperation.
It's a great pleasure for me to take part in this ceremony to say goodbye to the 25th Chinese Medical Mission that came to work in Tunisia for 1 year. They have worked side by side with their Tunisian colleagues to fight against coronavirus. This is how we mark the importance of friendship between China and Tunisia. The cooperation in the public health sector is an example of all our cooperation with Tunisia and African countries. We will continue this partnership.
Toutes nos coopérations avec la Tunisie et les pays africains. Nous allons continuer.
Despite the difficulties, 38 Chinese doctors of different specialties have worked relentlessly at the Mongislim Hospital in La Mersa and in the regional hospitals of Jendouba, Gafsa and Sidi Bouzid.
The 25th Chinese Medical Mission to Tunisia has accomplished its mission. Members of the Chinese mission have overcome the daily difficulty of providing protective gear and face masks and the load of work. But it is a great pleasure to succeed this medical cooperation and to offer good services to the Tunisian people. We will not hesitate to return and transmit the Chinese collective work spirit. It is requested by President Xi Jinping.
In 2020, Tunisian President Kais Saied inaugurated the new university hospital in the city of Sfax. This project was financed by a grant from China. The hospital now serves as a national treatment center for patients of COVID-19. It will later be used as a multidisciplinary military hospital. The 25th Chinese medical delegation in Tunisia was welcomed by the local population for helping people during the COVID-19 crisis. Tunisian authorities say the 26th Chinese medical mission will support the country's efforts in the health sector. Adnan Shawishi, CGTN, Tunis.
The internationally acclaimed archaeology magazine has chosen Egypt's Golden City in Luxor as the top discovery of 2021 worldwide. The magazine has announced the top 10 discoveries of the year, which included another entry from Africa, which is the earliest leatherworks found in Morocco. Yasser Hakim has more.
Most discoveries from ancient Egypt are either tombs, burial chambers, or temples. What was unearthed this time was a 3,500-year-old city of Aton, chosen by Archaeology magazine as the top international discovery in 2021. It was actually found by a stroke of good luck, as archaeologists Zahi Hawes's led team were searching for some of King Tutankhamun's treasures. The city's buildings were found intact, surrounded by roads, security fences, and entrances to different districts. Ali Abu Chish, a member of the all-Egyptian team that has worked on this mission, says the discovery is a game changer.
This city gave us a lot of details about the daily lives of Egyptians, a lot of details on their way of living. Even a zigzag-looking wall, we learned that it was made this way to strengthen the wall so it doesn't fall off. It has given us valuable information about the Egyptian civilization because most of the information we have is about death and afterlife in the Egyptian civilization. This discovery provided insight on how they spent their days.
Dubbed the Golden City, it was built by King Amenhotep III and divided into 3 districts: industrial, administrative, and living quarters for the workers. There are bakeries, breweries, and butcher shops in the settlements. Former inhabitants' belongings were impressively well preserved, such as potteries, dolls, kitchenware, the first mummified fish, and even dried meat that has survived thousands of years underground. Archaeologists believe this discovery will impact the North African country's tourism industry as a whole, not just Egyptologists.
It will benefit tourism because the world looks at ancient Egypt as pyramids, temples, and tombs. When you find a residential city, The world will want to know how and where the people who built this great civilization were living.
Nearly half of the settlement has been unearthed. Work is still ongoing to excavate the rest of the city, hoping it will uncover even more of the secrets of ancient Egypt. Yes, Hakim for CGTN, Cairo.
You're watching Africa Live. Coming up in sports news. Former Nigerian coach Egwavon becomes the interim coach after Roy dismissal.
How would you create your legend? On the fields, on the tracks, in the arenas of Africa.